Hello, welcome to our mini-series, one-to-one with John. This one also is going to focus on when you work with drinkers, and this comes quite a lot. This sentence, my partner thinks I'm an alcoholic. It's a kind of a sister to, am I making a fuss, isn't it, really?
It is a bit, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so first thing we know is they're there because somebody has put pressure on them to come.
Yeah.
Does that mean they get less out of the session necessarily or not?
Well, if you bring a completely closed mind to any session or anything, then you're not going to get a great deal out of it. But that's not necessarily the case, because we sort of start and talk things through. You know, I don't sort of go, well, you must be, you know, that's, yeah.
Okay, so what do you do? I mean, when you hear that, what's the process you'd take someone through?
Well, it's funny. Let me take you back. I remember my wife thought I was an alcoholic, didn't know. And she phoned Alcoholics Anonymous.
All right, did she?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this guy came on the phone.
Well, she put him on the phone to you?
Yeah, she put it in my hand, said speak, you know, and this guy came on the phone and he said, I believe you're an alcoholic.
Yes.
And I said, well, my wife seems to think so.
Yes.
He said, I'll be right there. So he took me to a meeting.
Yes.
And I went to this meeting and I got all the identification I wanted. None.
So what do you mean by that?
I knew in my heart of hearts that I was not an alcoholic.
Right, okay.
Couldn't possibly be an alcoholic. So I went to this meeting totally closed-minded. You know, I got absolutely nothing out of it.
Yes.
Went to the pub on the way home, fell in the door, said, told you I wasn't an alcoholic. That was what I got out of it.
So you're saying that they probably arrived with quite a lot of denial. So how do you bring someone out of denial?
Yeah, I was absolutely full of denial.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing we do is we start to examine, you know, what their drinking is like, how often they drink, what they do. I start to talk to them about, you know, the fact that problem drinking is not about how much you drink. It's not about how often you drink. It's about your relationship with drinking.
Yeah.
And then we start to talk around that, you know, and we start to talk about what alcohol does for you. You know, so, and I talk quite a lot about my own experience here, you know, and we try and sort of swap some stories, you know. And sometimes what I see is people's, you know, the lights come on. But if they're coming in, you know, basically and saying my wife thinks I'm an alcoholic, then very often, as I say, they are already, as I say, very closed-minded. However, what you have to say is that they might be closed-minded, but at least they've come.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's easier to convince somebody that that there is a problem when they're there than if they're not there.
Yeah.
You know.
Would you say you handle those situations very gently?
Yes, you've got to handle them gently. You know, I mean, we can't sort of pontificate and bottled up about you know how to talk to an alcoholic if I can't do it myself.
That's true.
You know?
Do you struggle with that sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes people say things and I say, you know.
Yes. We do.
You know.
Yes.
And you know, and I sit there and I think, his poor wife, you know, or his poor mother, or whatever, you know, and I end up identifying with the family member you know, a lot, you know. So yeah, I mean, I understand it.
If you're thinking about coming, what means that's I think the power of you and me anyway, is that we said in the last video that John feels great respect and compassion for drinkers that come.
Oh, absolutely.
But also he can get into the world of the person that kind of asked them to come in the first place, and so we have these two perspectives which we're able to bear in mind, and you know what it feels like to be there.
Yep.
To do the journey to get out of it.
Yep.
But having listened to me and I had to bring a lot of my pain when we got married, you lived a lot of my first husband's kind of marriage with me because I had somewhere where I could let some of that pain out. So John really understands kind of both points of view in a very powerful way, really, which must be kind of a bit unique. I'm sure there'll be one or two around it.
I don't know if it's unique, but certainly it's quite rare. So I will say that much.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I have to say that myself, I wasn't convinced. I was an alcoholic, and I wanted to blame everybody else, and eventually, when I had nobody else left to blame, it was just me, and that's when I started to realise. But also when I started to realise, then I started to look back, and I would start to see that I thought I'd only a problem the last year or so, but the more sober I got, the longer I saw it, and it went way back to my teens. And my relationship with alcohol had never been right. It's never been right. But sometimes when when drinkers come along, that what they're looking for is the opposite from when we were talking about, am I making a fuss? That what very often the partner is looking for is a label.
Yes.
And when the drinker comes along, they're actually looking for a label as well. Not alcoholic.
Yes.
They're looking for, they're looking for vindication. That's what they're looking for. One's looking for validation, the other one's looking for vindication. And they're sitting there going, sorry, that's not the case. And very often what they'll sit there and they'll do is they'll tell me what they don't do.
Yeah. To this wily old bird.
Yeah.
You're thinking, I've heard all this before.
Yeah, not only have I heard it all, I've said it all. That's the problem.
But he won't be scornful. Again, he's very kind. I think that's one of the things that I think alcoholics fear is scorn, as well as being shamed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was terrible at scorning my husband. I wish that I hadn't done it. I wish that...
But again, that's understandable. It's understandable because, you're getting a daily battering.
Yeah.
And that's the difficulty. It's, living with a drinker can very often be like, PTSD.
Absolutely. Well, I think they probably would say that for quite a lot of the situations.
Yeah, battle fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's constant, you just can't escape from it. That's why we sort of did an article on learned helplessness and things like that, because that's the way you feel. But to get back to the drinker, yes, very often when people come and say that, my wife thinks I'm an alcoholic, then I sit down and talk to them about it. And if at the end of the day I really didn't think that was the case, then I would tell them, There's one person I've worked with, and I think, well, do you really want to stop drinking? Because quite often when I'm listening to somebody, in my head I'm kind of, making an assessment. And sometimes when people come and tell me all of what they're not doing, I think, well, what's the missing part here? There's something missing, because if that is true, then why are you talking to me? Because that doesn't make any sense. And that's when we have to start and tease out
the actual truth rather than what the perceived truth.
And because I talk about my drinking and I sort of, I'm basically going, here I am, this is what I've done, that, it gives them an opportunity, because they don't feel as if I'm talking to them, I'm talking down to them.
And so at that point, your experience is really important.
Well, this is the whole point of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, and that's what I do. Sometimes I'm just sitting there going, yeah, I know what you mean, Hey, let me tell you,
Now, you didn't used to do this, did you? That when you became a professor, and because you hung out in some very important circles at one point and did a lot of key speaking, and because he did a very, very important kind of article, didn't you, that became standard in alcohol work. But so you never told anyone that you were alcoholic. So what changed that then?
Oh, that's a funny thing. I didn't tell people, not because of shame. I didn't tell people because I wanted to be taken seriously as a scientist. You know, I didn't want to be seen as, you know, oh, it's a reformed alcoholic who's got an axe to grind.
Sure.
I didn't want that. I wanted to be a scientist, and I just thought the alcoholism might get in the way, you know. But there's one or two people round about me knew exactly, you know, and and people used to want to come and talk to me because of my, you know, my vast knowledge, you know, and all the research and etc. You know, and now people are not the slightest bit interested. They want to know about my alcoholism. They want to know about, you know, where I came from. They want to know about, you know, my experiences, and that is probably the most valuable thing I have now. You know,
to bring hope.
Yeah, the you know, the science is good, and it gives me a context for it, because sometimes when people only have their lived experience to give, then sometimes they see this is the only way. You know, I did it this way, therefore you have to do it that way. And you see that quite often with things like tough love. You know, somebody was really tough on me, therefore I've got to be tough on them. And some people can't handle tough love. Some people need something quite different altogether. They need the kid gloves, you know. And what the science does is it gives me a broader perspective, you know, and I think that's very important. I think it's very important indeed.
Sure. I'm just going to finish with something that teasing out of what you said earlier. If you're coming and you're saying my partner thinks I'm an alcoholic, you're in a really good place, because actually John didn't work through that. And as he said earlier, you ended up without a partner and you ended up by yourself. So I would say, if you come and say my partner thinks I'm an alcoholic, you've caught this in time. And you've still got a relationship, and you can work on yourself and keep that relationship alive, not taking that intervention John has just said. And I think it should be highlighted before we finish, as he ended up without his wife.
Yes, a good point.
Yes, and kind of ended up by himself. So that's a good thing in itself. If you come and say my partner thinks I'm an alcoholic, what it means is that you're in a relationship that your partner thinks is worth saving, because they've sent you to get some help. And so that in itself is really important. So if you're one of those and you turn up and say, my partner thinks I'm an alcoholic, John will sympathetically and compassionately work with you, but it means your partner cares enough for this relationship still to prod you to get some help for you as a partner, maybe as a father or a mother. So that in itself is a really helpful, positive thing. And
that's true. And I'd like to say something before the end, you know, that if you come and see me, then you're my client. You know, I'm not the sort of, I'm not the tool of your wife. You know, I'm not representing her. If you come and say, my wife thinks I'm an alcoholic, I'm not there to go, yes, you are. You know, I'm there to listen to you. Sometimes when we go to the doctors, you know, we go to the doctors for reassurance that we're not got a problem.
Yeah, well, often that's the truth, isn't it?
Or we might have a problem, but it's not that problem or that problem. You know, it's not the big one. You know, and we often go for reassurance. Now, if you come to me, I will give you a fair assessment. I won't sit and say, well, okay, well, if your wife thinks you're an alcoholic, then you definitely are an alcoholic. I'll listen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think we're finished there. I'm not going to, we could discuss this, but Okay then, so thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.